ready for this? It's showtime. Lights, fans, action. Oh yeah, we've got action. Faster, tougher, more ferocious. There's nothing like League. This is the Betfred Super League.
Got me here. It took a big chunk off. It's bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped my ear off. What do you think?
Welcome along to this week's Eddie and Stevo, the podcast. Half an hour of all that's making the news in the big, wide, wonderful world of rugby league this week. And thanks to Betfred for their continued support. Well, look, we were all wondering whether after last week, with the top two being beaten, could this last weekend live up to all of that? The answer, a resounding yes. Round 18 played in searing temperatures, and that in itself, Stevo, is testimony to our players' fitness. How on earth do they play in all that heat? No official drink breaks, for goodness sake.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I must say, Eddie, I've got to congratulate all the players, because there was no complaints. There's no someone saying that, you know, it's dangerous to play in such heat, etc. and so forth. You've got to understand, you know, when I was playing, it was all part-time. We had a job on the side, but now you're a fully fit professional rugby league player, and they are giving us great entertainment. I have not seen a better game for a long time, where it was at Headingley, St Helens. They recorded their 7th win in a row, and I'll tell you something, it was a remarkable effort. I just could not doubt the defence from both sides. It was amazing.
It was from start to finish, and St Helens lost 2 hookers to HIA assessments in the first half, Darryl Clark, James Burns. But you're right, they produced one of their best performances of the season, and their second win in 3 against the Leeds Rhinos. Saints are showing the top 6 credentials, aren't they? And grand final ambition again.
Well, a few weeks ago we said, you know, and you've always said it, Eddie, don't underestimate, do not write off the Saints. Yeah, look, it's a remarkable turnaround as well, because quite a lot of the Saints fans, they were wanting to get rid of their coach. A lot of people have got short memories, but he's turned it around. And I'm so glad, because not only was he a fantastic rugby league player, I think he's a damn good coach. Simple as that. He's doing a great job.
Well, it's amazing. After the game, and he's been there, you know, donkey's years, Paul Wellens, he said that was the best defensive effort that he'd seen at the club since he joined all those years ago. And as well as the defence, how about Harry Robertson, Johnny Lomax, Moses Mbai, this young Owen Dagnall? It's all tremendous, absolutely tremendous.
Well, I mean, some of them will be doing over 50 tackles in the game.
Yeah, Matty Lees and Morgan Knowles, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it was just incredible, and full credit to them, especially, as you say, in very, very hot conditions. But, you know, the great Australian coach, Jack Gibson, always used to say to everybody, defence will win you games. And it's true.
Very much so. 6-0 as well. I mean, people will say, oh, it was boring. It was anything but boring. But Leeds, they slipped up having beaten the leaders Hull KR the previous week. Erratic performance from them, particularly Jake Connor. Couldn't get going in attack. A big crash back to earth, this, wasn't it?
Well, that's the sort of thing that the speculation, and there are a lot of fans saying, why on earth has he not been selected in the England squad, etc. and so forth. Look, every player has his ups and downs. And I'm afraid with Connor, he has quite a few ups and downs. Sometimes he can produce something absolutely brilliant, and then he does something stupid. But that's sport. That's rugby league. It's up and down.
It's humanity, Stevo. You're good 1 minute and bad the next. We know that.
Well, you and I have got away with it for I don't know how many years. In fact, I'm not even going to mention the amount of years that I work with you because people suspect that we're both old.
And they're absolutely right. But Saints aren't, and they've got another huge game coming up this week, home to Lee. Lee have now beaten both Wigan and Hull Kingston Rovers in their last 2 games. Rovers lost just once all year before last week's defeat at Leeds. They've now lost 2 in a row, and the Leopards full value for that 28-10 victory.
Oh yeah, they were outstanding, weren't they? You know, it's a good combination because they've got a good solid pack, they've got good 3/4, but they play as a unit. And every time when people point the finger and say, "Oh, you're only a maybe team. Sometimes you're on and sometimes you're off," psychologically, they just seem to look at each other and say, "Listen, they're trying to write us off. Don't write them off. They are a very, very good side."
They are. They're compact. They do everything right. And Josh Charnley, he got 2 tries. He's now got a career 251 tries and second in the all-time list of Super League try scorers. You know, he was dropped in May, Stevo. He only came back last weekend because of injuries. He's off contract at the end of the season. Guess where he says he wants to end his playing days? Back at Wigan.
Wigan. I got it. Well, there's no point in saying, "Well, I'd love to go back to Huddersfield or whatever," and no, I'd like to go to the lower teams. Don't get me wrong. But he's that type of character, though, isn't he? I mean, I don't know whether many fans meet up with him, but he's got a character all of his own. I think he's good for our game. And how cheeky can you get? Don't pick a low club. Pick one of the best. Wigan.
Pick the top of the tree. I'm sure Lee'll do all they can to hold on to him, though. I bet they will. But what now for Rovers? Stevo, losing for the second time in as many games. No Mikey Lewis. They capitulated against Leeds last week when he left the field. He looked a shadow of themselves without him on Friday. Danny Richardson recalled from his loan spell at Salford, and then he hobbles off injured. Rovers disjointed without Lewis, Stevo. And I know a lot of people don't like him, but without him, they do seem to have a problem.
Yeah, and I think it's collectively as well, and maybe a little bit of a mental sort of thing going through some of the players that, you know, even before the kickoff, we're without our star player. It's very rare you find a player of that caliber. My mind goes back to the likes of Alex Murphy, Roger Millward. You know, those 2 magnificent players, if they didn't play for their team, they were put under a great deal of pressure. And it just shows you that, you know, Mikey Lewis is one of the top players at the moment, not only in this country, but in the world.
He's a cheeky chappy, isn't he, Stevo? Let's leave it at that, shall we?
I mentioned it the other day that it reminded me so much of Alex Murphy. I mean, Alex never stopped talking. He never stopped creating anything, lifting the crowd or whatever, upsetting certain players, whether it be sort of trying to tackle him a bit awkward, shall we say, or coming out with a few words of wisdom. He just never stopped yapping. And he was just one of the greatest players of all time. Absolutely sensational. And he's following in the footsteps.
I'm sure that Mikey Lewis will be delighted to hear things like that. But look, Lee now third. St Helens, they're next. They're fourth, just 2 points behind them. This is a hell of a game coming up this weekend, isn't it? Lee at St Helens.
Yes. And if Lee can pull it off, and it will be difficult because they will have watched that game against Leeds, realising that the defence were moving up. They never allowed Leeds any option to get the ball out more than, say, 2 or 3 players. Now, if you can shut down the opposition like that, it's very difficult to score a try. And he'll have the same attitude when they have to play against Lee. And of course, Lee realised that they know they've got to do exactly the same thing.
Let's have a look at the other side of Hull, the west side of Hull. The black and white flags are finally flying, Stevo. First home win, get this, 355 days. 16-10 victory over Wakefield last Thursday. Second half fight back, 10-0 down at the break. Now then, here's the talking point. After the match, a bit of a reported verbal spat broke out between the two coaches. Darryl Powell accusing Hull's John Cartwright of complaining in the tunnel during half-time that the black and whites hadn't received a single penalty or a set restart in the second half, and things changed significantly in the second 40. Powell said the comments were overheard by the referee, and that influenced all his decisions. Can referees, Stevo, can they really be influenced by things like that?
They're human beings, Eddie. Though I know a lot of fans don't think that they should be on planet Earth. But look, sometimes it can affect you if you understand, if you get the stats. I know quite a lot of old referees who at half-time, right, would be given the information that how many penalties he'd given to one side and how many penalties he'd given to another side. Now, I'm not saying that that could or would change their mind, but I know it went on for a long, long time, especially around when I was playing, in regards to the fact that the referee would ask someone to give them all the stats. Now, what they make of that, I'll leave it up to you, for those lovely fans to accuse certain referees of changing their mind. But I do know that it's a common practice, because I think by law, I don't think that you're allowed to know the stats at halftime.
Well, they can always be influenced, people believe, by the people standing on the terraces, because how long have we heard, forward referee, get him on side, it can turn around. But that's thousands of people shouting at them from the sideline. Hull, listen to this. Hull received 8 penalties in the second half. Wakefield got none. John Cartwright denied he'd got to the referee, James Vella. Powell said his comments had come within the earshot of the referee. Well, what's deniable is they got their act together in the second half. And they're in the top 6.
Yeah, and look, John Cartwright, a good rugby league player in his own right, and I can assure you, he's an Aussie, Eddie. Yeah. And listen, the Aussies will want to try to find out what's best and how can they improve. And if he wants to shout out outside the referee's door, I'm not right sure that there's a law to prevent you from doing that. He may have just been talking to one of the ball boys. We didn't get any penalties in the first half. Or make it a little bit louder and maybe knock on the door. We didn't get any.
It's the rule of free speech, Stevo. You can say what you like, so long as you're within the law. And he obviously is in the law.
I'm not so sure there's a law that covers that. But maybe sort of talking loudly outside a referee's door, maybe that's acceptable. I've no idea. But I can understand Powell being a little bit, shall we say, none too happy with the fact how on earth it can change around in the second half.
Well, things do. Look, we're talking about the temperatures here in England. In the south of France, they were half what they were here at home. The rain was pouring down in Perpignan, and Warrington took full advantage of the cool and rainy conditions. They beat Catalan Dragons 24-20. They left it a bit late with Josh Thulis's try finishing the Dragons off. But if the Dragons lost, and they did, they won't make the playoffs now. Warrington still might. It was make or break for these two clubs this last weekend, wasn't it?
Disappointing, because I thought Warrington would be up there with the best. They've had a bit of an up and down season, but as you say, they left it late, and it really looked as though only someone with brilliance could turn it around. And I've got to say that the Warrington captain was superb in those last 5 minutes.
He was. It reminded me a bit, Stevo, of the old pictures I keep seeing of the 1968 Water Splash Challenge Cup final. You know, there was water everywhere on that field at Perpignan. As they touched down for the tries, they slid through, and there was a trail of water in front and behind them. Incredible conditions.
No, it wasn't good, because how unusual would it be that here we are, 30 odd degrees in the UK, and in the south of France, it was teeming it down. I think that's the expression.
It is, and apologies for mentioning that to all the poor people who are on holiday in the south of France last weekend. Listen, you mention week after week the lack of juniors coming through into Super League. This will cheer you up. Warrington's entire back line, the two Thulis brothers, Connor Wrench and Zach Gardner, products of the academy setup. I know they've had major injuries in the backs, Warrington. They've got people out for the rest of the season. But hats off to the Wolves. Hats off to them.
Yeah, look, they've got that act together, and they've got a great coach. They're building, and I can see that the benefits of making sure that your junior development is top class. You've got to look towards the future. Many years ago, St. Helens, they were the leaders. Wigan, they were also the leaders in ensuring that they had good backup. But to have junior development is so important. I applaud any club, and Warrington has been very, very good in that department of bringing juniors through.
Yeah, they have. And they dangle a little carrot looking for junior players, because just a postscript to this, a few years now, the Warrington Academy have enjoyed an annual trip to Australia. They're heading off again this year. And this week they've had a fundraising event, a quiz evening, a question of rugby league. They've raised almost £130,000 for the trip. They've got about 50 grand still to go. It's going to be 3 weeks. Well done to them for that. And the little do this week for the question of rugby league night, they raised another £2,000. So, the squad builder people there at Warrington, all the people in the background, Richard Marshall, Gary Chambers, doing a fantastic job in attracting young kids through the door at Warrington.
And they have done for quite some years now. And it's all about building up your junior development and then bringing them through. And sometimes in the past, it was difficult to give them the opportunities to get into first grade, because that is everything that counts, is making sure that they develop these youngsters so that they can take on. It's a big challenge to take and play your first game in Super League. It's pretty tough out there. And that's what you've got to try to develop, not just in the fitness or the rugby prowess, but mentally as well.
A big weekend for Salford. Raise the flags here too. They only got their second win of the season against Castleford, 26-22. Two clubs here in serious trouble, Stevo. Cass, of course, they've no coach because of the sacking of Danny Maguire. The change didn't have the desired effect. So the search goes on for his successor. Now, they've allegedly identified the man they want to replace him as Ryan Carr from the coaching staff at St George Illawarra Dragons in Australia. He's the man being tracked by Chris Chester. He had a year with Featherstone, apparently, in 2019, guiding them to the £1 million game, only to miss out to Toronto that year. So he knows the British scene. Do you think he's a realistic candidate?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's coaching staff at St George Illawarra Dragons. And look, it doesn't surprise me that Chris Chester has had to go for them, because he knows that when he came over to Featherstone, he guided them to that £1 million game. And he understands what it's all about. Sometimes for you to bring an Australian into the UK that's probably never lived here before, it's completely different. Early in the piece, Brad Arthur, he struggled to understand what it was all about at Leeds. And of course, he hasn't made up his mind yet whether he's going to stay at Leeds, because there's a lot of problems down in Australia. Is that Des Hasler, the Gold Coast Titans, there's talk about him retiring at the end of the year. His contract states that if they don't make the playoffs, this season, then they can sack him. And I think Des is thinking about, maybe I'll retire before they sack me. I'm not right sure. There's also speculation now that Adam O'Brien, who's a Newcastle coach, he's on his way out. And both of them, both clubs are suggesting that Willie Peters is on the radar.
Oh, really?
And why not? I mean,
hands off, say Hulk AR, hands off.
Well, it's all right. The clubs are saying hands off. It's look down under where they've been paying millions for players to swap clubs, even though they've got a 2-year contract to finish. Money talks all languages, Eddie.
It really does. Hey, I've just, by the way, another name thrown his hat into the ring, allegedly, Justin Morgan. Justin Morgan may be coming back to Castleford. He said to be interested again.
Yeah, well, he's been off the scene slightly as Justin. Whether that will be a negative against him, I'm not right sure. But look, Ryan Carr, he's got the runs on the board, and as I say, he's experienced coaching in the UK, and that's a great advantage. And I'm sure that Chris Chester would be perhaps saying that he's the favourite.
You know, it doesn't take us long to get back to Salford. We've already mentioned they just had their second win of the season. Another distressing story has been leaking out this week, that the senior players threatening not to turn out this week against the Leeds Rhinos. The playing group want to be kept informed of what's going on at the club, don't we all? Players are concerned that the much publicised and promised money that would keep the club afloat is still not there. They're concerned they won't be paid beyond the end of the season if they still have a contract. They fear they won't have any power left to change things round if they do see the season out. The club and the governing body, they say, have been kept informed. Now, look, we've heard about all this before, player strikes, and nothing came from them. But yet again, an awful, awful predicament for the club and its supporters.
Well, the supporters would be buoyant with the fact that at least they got a win. I mean, it's a situation that nobody seems to want to grab hold of it and make a decision. What about our game in this country? We seem to be changing things every month, or suggesting we change things. Nigel Wood, once again, he comes out of the woodwork, and it's predicted that this week he will be given the main job again. What on earth is happening? But no one seems to know who's in charge, who's looking after our game.
Well, look, let me tell you this. He's written an article, self-penned in the trade press this week, saying there's no silver bullet to solve the game's problems. There'll be no great reveal coming, no drum roll, no fanfare, despite what is he talking about you here? Despite what the clickbait back bedroom scribes suggest. But he says there will be some well thought through principles and concepts and ideas to further progress and evaluate and sense check against our shareholders' wishes. In other words, they're telling us now, Stevo, we're clickbait now.
I mean, I know you and I, we're laughing, but we shouldn't be laughing. We shouldn't be laughing about the greatest game in the world. We should be wanting to ensure that we get it right. Are they going to get rid of IMG? Have they said that forget about the 10-year contract? Are we saying this, that, and the other? Do we have to go backwards? Is that one step forward and 3 steps back? I'm not right sure. I know the only one financial thing about it, Eddie, is that Nigel Wood probably got us the most television money in the history of our game.
He did well. It's been halved and more since he left. But there's no lack of ambition amongst other clubs, because they've got this plan that the Super League will be expanded to 14 teams next year. The news has not gone unnoticed in the top championship clubs. York Knights with Toulouse in the promotion places. Now they have launched an audacious bid, apparently, to take Paul Vaughan away from the Warrington Wolves. massive amount of money being paid, and I've heard from a very reliable source the deal is done. They've spent a fortune already, and the news about Super League expansion is probably at the heart of all that ambition. Josh Griffin linked with them as well. I wonder, Stevo.
Well, the one thing you don't wonder about, Eddie, is that who on earth is backing them? They
Someone with a lot of cash. That's
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
someone with big money. Yeah,
and that's how it should be. That all the big clubs, they realise that they need not just support with people paying through the turnstiles, but we need backing from multi-billionaires or millionaires. We've got to try to attract people into ensuring that our game stays at the top. I mean, I was watching the tennis over the last 2 weeks, Eddie, and they were introducing great stars from film and from stage and from sport and this, that, and other. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe there'll be a rugby league star. And I'm not right sure whether there was one. I didn't watch it all the way through, but the majority of it is. And I'm thinking to myself, why are we put down? Why are we so often do we get put down, pushed to one side?
Well, maybe, to be fair, Steve, or maybe the rugby league people haven't asked to be on the invite list. I mean, Sally Bolton was at Rugby Football League. She's now running Wimbledon. Richard Lewis before her. He was our boss as well. So rugby league is in the DNA of the people who are running Wimbledon. But if you don't ask, you don't get these days, do you?
Well, surely it's not a case of asking. I mean, that's like me saying, I'll ring them up. Hello, Sally, remember me? No, I don't.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
No. And if you say to yourself, any chance of an invite or whatever, they said, listen, we have our own stars. And I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't it have been great, Kevin Sinfield being invited to the lawn tennis club?
100%. 100% indeed, it would.
Now, to my knowledge, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. All I'm saying is that every time I watched when they were introducing them, they said, and I'm thinking, there's got to be a rugby. There was a few rugby union people there.
Oh, of course, Knights of the Realm.
Yes.
Talking of which, we're good to see Billy Boston on the telly this the weekend. Right?
Fantastic.
They put a throne out for him and he sat on the centre spot. It was great to see him. A beaming smile all the way through.
I'll tell you what, I thought it was sensational. I really thought that was a wonderful thing that you could do to one of the great rugby league players, but one of the great human beings. Such a modest man with such a wonderful playing record.
They do things well at Wigan. I know that they're making heavy weather of things just lately on the field, but they're still there or thereabouts. And let's just end on a really positive note, because Christian Wade, the latest recruit to our game from Rugby Union, who's now in Wigan colours, made his debut, as well as a young man called Harvey Makin. Matt Pete said to be pleased with both of them. And Christian Wade, playing on the wing, got his first try, 50 minutes. He kick-started the Wigan comeback to get the victory against Huddersfield. So welcome to the big league, Christian Wade, the man that they signed from Gloucester.
Yeah, well, it's nice for us to poach the rugby union players. Of course, way back in the olden days, the reason why we poached them is because, and I'll cough twice, rugby union players were not paid anything. And a lot of the rugby union players were forced to get a good living so that they could buy a house, etc. and so forth. And they turned the code and played for the greatest game of all, which is rugby league.
Yeah, well, let's hope he has a long and glittering career in the 13-a-side code.
Before we go, Eddie, I have to say something. We've been talking about where are we going to get the money from, etc. and so forth. There is news come out this week.
Oh, here's the big reveal. Here's the big reveal.
That the NRL and the people who run it, Peter Vlandy and Andrew Abdo, they have been in America trying to get a deal, a multi-million-dollar deal to back rugby league in Australia, and they've been having discussions with the streaming giants, DAZN, which I think is pronounced what, Eddie?
DAZN.
DAZN,
Yeah.
Amazon, and Netflix.
Oh.
And we're talking a multi-million-dollar deal. I've got fingers crossed, because the more money we can get and invest, especially in the NRL, then it shouldn't be too long before the people in this country who are running our game finally accept the fact the expertise from Vlandy and Abdo and the NRL in Australia can help put our game back at the top of the tree.
And on that very positive note, we end this week's edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast. Good on you, Stevo. And we've learned a few things today. You're a tennis fan. I'll give Sally a ring. You'll be there in 2026. How's that?
I'll be looking to be alive in 2026. What's up with it?
You'll make it. Anyway, listen, make it till next week and we'll talk again then. Okay.
Take care, Tom, man.